I remember you saying, just thinking about sort of future and culture and stuff like that, I remember you saying that the left had won the culture war and now they're just driving around shooting the survivors.
Right.
After the last 6 months of change that we've seen and sort of where we're at the moment, what do you think the future of the culture war looks like?
It's not over yet. They definitely won earlier rounds. They took over institutions. I think now it's much more of a fair fight, where you have people like Elon, kind of supporting. There's these different forces through history, right? Historians will argue about this, but there's a theory of the great man of history thing, where it's like, oh, you have the Einsteins, you have the Teslas, you have the Genghis Khans and the Caesars, right? They determine the flow of history. And then there's the other point of view that, no, there are these massive forces at play, demographics and geography and so on. And then the particular great man doesn't matter. They just come and go. Napoleon doesn't matter. They would have been somebody else. The specific names are not important. And because of kind of the leftist turn that our institutions took in the last few decades, they now only subscribe to the great forces theory of history, not the great man theory of history. But I think now we're seeing the two play out, where you're seeing, Trump and Elon and other individuals rising up and saying, no, we resist.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I think that, unfortunately, and so the battle between kind of these collectivists and great forces versus individuals, it's as old as humanity itself, and it is fundamental to the species. We are not a completely individualistic species. No man is an island. A single person can't do anything by themselves. But we're also not a Borg. We're not a beehive. We're not an ant colony. We're not all just drones marching along. So which is it? We're somewhere in the middle, and the human race is always kind of bouncing between the two. We like strong leaders. We like to be led. We like to coordinate our forces and mass and do things. But at the same time, we're also all individuals and willing to break away and willing to do our own thing. And everyone's always fighting to be a leader, and there's always status games going on. So there's a pendulum that's always swinging back and forth. And in modern economics, the way that manifests is between sort of Marxism and capitalism, right? Marxism is like from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. We're all equal. There's a millennial project. We're all going to be equal in the end. And don't try and stand out, but do what's good for everybody. And there's a religious aspect to it. And then the capitalist individualist is like libertarian, every man for himself. You just each do what you want and it'll work out for the greater good. That's Adam Smith. The invisible hand of the market will feed you. The baker should bake and the butcher should butcher and the candlestick maker should make candlesticks, and it'll all work out. Each person does their best and they trade. And so which is it? Which theory is correct? And I think there's always going to be a battle between the two. And I think the interesting thing is what's going on. There's a modern flavor to it, which changes it. The modern flavor is that the individual is getting more powerful because they're becoming more leverage. So someone like an Elon Musk can have the leverage of tens of thousands of brilliant engineers and producers working for him. He can have factories of robots manufacturing things. He can have hundreds of billions of dollars of capital behind him, and he can project himself through media to hundreds of millions of people. That is more power than any individual could have had historically. So the great men of history are becoming greater. That said, that same leverage is increasing the gap between the haves and have-nots. So in the wealth game, more people are winning overall and the average is going up. But in the status game, there are essentially more losers. There are more invisible men and women who are getting nothing out of life and have no leverage, relatively speaking. Objectively speaking, they might be better off. They still have phones and they still have TVs and they still
not
get to
absolutist
eat.
creatures,
Correct.
though. We're relative creatures.
Correct. And so to the extent that we're relative creatures, there are more losers than winners. And in a democracy, those people will outnumber the winners and they will vote the winners down.
Yep.
And so that's the battle that kind of goes on. And the democracy has gotten very broad. And so one of my other quips is that it's not the right to vote that gives you power. It's power that gives you the right to vote. So we've confused the two. So what happened was, voting started as a way for people who had power to divide up the power and not fight amongst themselves. The winners of the revolution, the winners of the war, the people in the House of Lords and the House of Commons, they divide up power amongst themselves. They say, hey, we have all the money, we have the power, we are the knights, we have the swords, we have the warriors, we could kill everybody, but we don't want to just fight each other all day long. We don't want to be Game of Thrones forever. So we're going to divide up power by voting amongst ourselves. But then as society goes on and becomes more and more peaceful, that franchise for voting gets spread. It gets spread to people who don't have land, who don't have power, who may not be able to inflict physical violence. And then eventually you get to the point where everybody's voting. Everybody's voting, and everybody's voting for candy and fairies and, all the free things in life. And then eventually people start voting to oppress each other. The 51% in any domain vote to oppress the 49. It's the tyranny of the majority. But not all of them are willing to back that up with physical power. And so you can end up in a situation where people who don't have physical power are using the institutions of the state to control the people who do have physical power. As a simple example, taking the United States, the people who don't have guns voting to disarm the people that do have guns, right? Well, if the people who do have guns get coordinated and care enough, you can't do that, right? So I think eventually these societal structures are unstable. They break down. And they break down because eventually the people who have the power and say, no, wait a minute, you don't get to vote. You only got to vote because you had power, and now you don't have power and you're somehow trying to vote. All of nature, all of society, all of capitalism, all of human endeavors are underpinned by physical violence. And that is very hard truth to swallow and hard to get away from. Nature is red in tooth and claw. If you don't fight, you don't survive, you don't live, you die. And that's true of everything alive today. And humans are no different. So giving up physical power and then thinking you can exercise political power fails, which is why every communist revolution, which is all about equality and kumbaya and brothers and sisters, end up being run by a bunch of thugs. Because if you don't have a way to divide up the wealth based on merit, then it's always going to be based on power and influence. So the thugs with the guns always win in the end. So the question is just, can you keep the thugs and with the guns paid and happy and successful society where you're allocating based on merit? Because if you can't, then you're going to do it based on power. So I do think that this battle is not over, but that's because it never stopped. It's always been there from day one. It will continue.
Is it a battle to not care about the news in an age of news saturation? All of this stuff, headlines, 24 hours a day, streamed directly into your consciousness through a device in your pocket. A lot of what we've spoken about today is freedom from having to think about things or care about things that you do not have control over, or that you shouldn't, or that you don't want to. And yet people are just like submerged up to the bottom of their nostrils, basically drowning in worry. So is it a battle to sort of stay out of the news when you're saturated in it?
Yeah. I mean, as you're saying, the human brain is not evolved to handle all the world's emergencies breaking in real time. And you can't care about everything, and you'll go insane if you try. Doesn't mean you shouldn't care at all. There's no should. I mean, if you want to care, go ahead and care. I would just say that you're probably better off only caring about things that are local or things that you can affect. So if you really care about something that's in the news, then by all means care about it, but make a difference. Go do something about it, and make sure that it's your overwhelming desire and you don't have 5 other desires at the same time. Also, just realize the consequences of it. You're going to be unhappy until that thing gets fixed, and that thing will often be out of your control.
Desire is a contract to be unhappy until you get what you want. But
exactly,
for the most part, that's something that is in your life. It's like, till I lose the weight, until I get the job.
It can be outside too.
If it's until the carbon dioxide parts per million are below this particular number, it's like, that's a
tough one.
Yeah.
Or all the people with Trump derangement syndrome, right? He's living rent-free in their heads and driving them insane. And I get it. I mean, there are politicians who have definitely driven me insane as well. But it comes at a very high cost. And it's something that is out of your control that you cannot really influence. So it's probably good to at least be conscious of it.
A quick aside, you've probably heard me talk about Element before. In fact, you might be thinking, for sake, Chris, will you shut up about Element? And the answer is, no, I won't, because when I take it, I genuinely feel the difference. I genuinely believe that proper hydration makes a massive difference to your performance. So I'm going to keep talking about it until you start drinking it. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. Each grab-and-go stick pack contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium with no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, or any other junk. It plays a critical role in reducing muscle cramps and fatigue while optimizing brain health, regulating appetite, and curbing cravings. This orange flavor in a cold glass of water is how I've started my morning every single day for over 3 years now. And I genuinely feel the difference versus when I don't. Best of all, they have a no questions asked refund policy with an unlimited duration, so you can buy it and try it for as long as you want. And if you don't like it for any reason, they'll just give you your money back. You don't even need to return the box. That's how confident they are that you'll love it. Plus, they offer free shipping within the US. And right now, you can get a free sample pack of all 8 flavors with your first box by going to the link in the description below or heading to drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom. That's drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom. /Modern Wisdom. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip with Naval, just a mere taster, the full-length episode is available right here. Go on. Watch it.